stupidity, only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you, you're the only thing that makes.
Good afternoon and welcome to NUFC Matters. My name's Steve Wraith.
And I'm Malcolm MacDonald.
And I'm John Gibson.
Good afternoon and welcome along to NUFC Matters. My name's Steve Wraith. Got the lads with us as usual, and we're going to look over the past week at Newcastle United, last week's game against Man United in particular. Don't forget, you can subscribe to us on NUFC Matters. We have been all over the place with the show over the last couple of weeks with broadcasting it. So if you don't want to miss an episode, get yourself onto YouTube, simply click subscribe. It's free to subscribe. And you will not miss an episode. We also have our 30-second rants on there. Last week's, of course, was about safe standing, which makes a very interesting watch. Anyway, lads, welcome along to the studio. We were all wrong last week. Newcastle United
Thankfully.
And Steve Bruce, going down the Rafa Benitez way of thinking, managed to get a 1-0 result. A great result, good performance. John, you first?
Yeah, I mean, tremendous result, and we weren't expecting it, but isn't this typical of Geordie life? I mean, a week before we lose 5 at Leicester, we're doomed.
Yeah.
We're going down, relegation's just a matter of seeing the season now.
Yeah.
We win 1-0 against Manchester United, go into an international break so we can wallow in the victory, and all of a sudden safety and hope is our second name.
Exactly.
And that's the way it is. It was a great result. It was a very good performance, highlighted by the 2 Longstaff boys, obviously. But a word of caution, and I hate to have words of caution because we have far too few wonderful days.
Yeah.
But the 2 fabulous victories we've had this season have been against 2 very fading big clubs. Big clubs, but fading clubs. Spurs and Man United, because weren't Man United awful? We don't care. We appreciate the fact that they were awful, because we were better than them. But that they weren't recognisable as Manchester United.
No, they weren't. And what amazed me was that having been a goal down, I thought the the 2 Longstaff lads were absolutely brilliant.
Terrific, yeah.
Particularly for Matty. I was so delighted for him. His
Well, without
debut
a shadow
was
of a
brilliant, but the
shadow
goal
of a-
topped it off. It was a fabulous strike, and he had hit the bar earlier on. But with 10 minutes to go, any half-decent side, they say, hey, come on, we're 1-0 down. Come on, let's really go for it. I didn't see a change in pace or a change in attitude from the Manchester United side, and they just plodded on to defeat.
I mean, I don't think they're playing for the manager, Malcolm.
Obviously not. Obviously not. And I
him.
think that the manager knows it, because
He's out his depth.
I was sat there looking at him, and all the time he kept looking to the people on the bench, as if to say, what do I say? What do I do? Have you got a word of advice for me? And nobody was able to help him at all.
Mind, having said that, who cares about them? Let's wallow in us having
yes,
won,
of course.
which was fabulous.
You're absolutely right, John.
And apart from the Longstaffs, and I thought Sean Longstaff was back to his best again.
Yeah.
He struggled this season, Steve, because of the injury.
Because of who he's playing next to, I think, as much as anything.
Well, yes, that is your belief, I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
And alongside his brother, they look terrific. But what about the Saint? We're hoping to get something out of him. Now, the last time I saw anybody stepping like that, it was in the Olympics. You know, the horses that he's going the off. He's got the Gucci headband on with a strip on it because he can't advertise. I mean, what a character! I mean, whether in fact he becomes what we desperately want him to become, because he will have games that are so far off the Richter scale.
Yeah.
He'll be sensational one week and he'll be an absolute nightmare the next when everything goes wrong. But he brought a breath of fresh air and a bit of stimulus in, and you felt there might well be a finish there that isn't in Atsu.
And a couple of starts that he's had, we've won both games, Spurs and Man United.
Yes.
Yes,
Absolutely.
I mean,
I'm not so sure that he actually recognises that moment in time, which is your shooting opportunity.
Yeah.
And in the Premiership, when you're playing at the top level, that moment, it closes down so quickly that it's so fractional that you have to just get it away when the opportunity is there. You can't dilly-dally, you can't take another yard, you can't beat another man. You've got to go for it. And I'm not sure that he's worked that bit out yet.
I'm sure he probably has.
I hope he can do, because there's a lot of players who don't. And I
he's one of those players, Malcolm, isn't he? That, you know, they say, well, the opposition doesn't know what he's going to do next, but that's because he doesn't know what he's going to do next.
That's right.
You know.
But that's so often the way, isn't it, with dribblers?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes,
absolutely.
You don't know which way they're going, and thankfully, nor do the opponents.
Nightmare to play against,
Absolutely.
because you don't know what side he's going and which way he's going to go, because basically he doesn't know, to be truthful.
Is that one of the best debuts you've seen at St James's Park, Matty Longstaff's, for a lad so young?
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, 19 to play like that with the enthusiasm and the vision and a total lack of worry. And when you think that midfield, their domain, Fred, £52 million, the Brazilian kid that played for
cost, but that's
£52 million. He never got a kick against the Longstaffs.
No, he didn't.
He never got a kick. He's a disaster.
In fact, I cannot remember seeing him except for one moment.
Well,
is that coming out of the tunnel?
And
no, I saw him at one moment.
But that was, you know, all power to the Longstaffs, because they just completely wiped the fella out.
The one time I saw him, I suddenly looked up and there he was standing between their two centre halves. And I'm thinking, this is supposed to be a £52 million Brazilian that should be dictating the game, and the two Longstaffs just took him apart.
But they were reading off each other. There was no power play between them. They were just happy to each do their job and work together. Whereas I think that Sean he's had a little bit of a battle with other midfield players that have been there, who want to look to do his job and dominate the situation. Whereas when we were watching him last season, the players around just say, "Go on, Sean. You have that space and do your best in it." And he looks sensational. And I think that they're wanting to get in on his act. Whereas Matty doesn't want to, because Matty, he can do it his way, which is quite different to Sean. And I thought it was a breath of fresh air. Here we had two midfield players playing in different styles, but working so effectively together.
The emergence of Matty, of course, puts further down the pecking order, not just Hayden, who's out the next two games as well with the red card, but Shelby and Keith. Now, yes, we still need midfielders. You can't go with just two. And don't think that Matty or Sean's going to not have a dip in form because of the age they're going to. So, and you need backup, Steve, that's obvious. But certainly when you think that Hayden was sort of sacrosanct on the side from last season with Rafa in the beginning of the division, gets picked automatically every week. Shelby used to be our go-to man, and they've been put a little bit further down. One of the things that does worry me about Matty, though, is the emergence this week of the fact that he's only on 850 quid a week, when some are on 60,000, and he's on 850, and that contract runs out at the end of this season. Now, he says he wants to stay at Newcastle, and I've got no shadow of doubt that he does, because he's a young man just learning his game. Why would he want to go away from home yet? But we know that Sean was exactly the same. He's admitted since that he's got his head turned by Manchester United's interest at the end of last season and during the summer. got a grip of it. They're two fabulous kids with their feet on the ground. But he admits that he got his head turned. Now, what's going to happen with Matty? He might wake up today and be asked 850 quid a week and it's out at the end of the season. Oh, I just want to stay in Newcastle. He does. But if he picks up the telephone and it's Arsenal, it's Chelsea, it's Liverpool or Man City or whoever coming on and trebling the fee, Newcastle will double up the fee. But your head can be turned.
Or Mike Ashley picking up the phone and saying, do you want to buy this player? Of course, let's not forget that's a possibility as well.
Well, it is.
Well,
I
yes,
suppose.
to go that,
We're a selling club, we're not a buying club.
Well, there's no question about that, by the way.
But the best way to do business is to say to Matty, right, look, we're going to put you on a 3 or a 4 year contract. Now, you just go and play your heart out, improve.
And we'll
in 2
make
years'
5 times as much.
Yeah, you will have learnt your trade. And that's the most important thing. When these much bigger clubs buy a young player like Matty, they sort of tuck them away in the reserves.
Oh, without a shadow of doubt.
For 2 or 3 years at least before they're even going to be considered. And that's no good for him. He's proved that he can do it in the first team, and we've got to see him doing it and improving and going up and up and up. In his
We said that
talents.
about Sean, didn't we? Don't go
Sean.
yet, because here you're
Exactly the
guaranteed
same.
to start every week.
I was going to say that was going to be my next question. Do you think they'll start,
Without the next game, Chelsea, without a shadow of doubt
They
for
must.
me. Without a shadow of doubt
Yeah,
for me.
they must, and I think the competition that they face will be far stronger than they had against Manchester United.
The Chelsea
Chelsea are on
midfield
the
is a totally different ball game to what we've had.
For a start, they want to play, unlike Manchester United.
Yeah.
But also their movement is
Mind, Sean went in last season against all the big clubs, didn't he? Debuted, I think, in Liverpool as a sub, and then played Man City and played very well against top midfielders. So there's no reason to think that these two kids won't go to Chelsea and do well. But there's real competition in that midfield.
Now, there's also something else to consider with regards to these two, because certainly the tactics were changed defensively by Steve Bruce.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, he went into the rougher...
He went back to
rougher
Rafa.
school,
And he admitted it, didn't he?
Yeah, he did, yeah.
Which was a very strange
And
thing
what a
for any
stupid
manager.
mistake that was, admitting
Well,
it.
you don't admit it, John.
Well,
do you?
my plans failed, so I'm going to
Yeah,
go back to
back to
Rafa's
Rafa's,
plan, and
yeah.
which just happens to work that afternoon. Go back to it, but don't make a song and dance
Yeah,
about
don't
doing
even
it.
mention it.
No.
No,
absolutely.
And so, whoops, sorry, I lost my place there. Another thought came across my head. No, but
They went back to defensive formation
they
of
went
Rafa.
back to and the defence was all the stronger.
Yeah.
For what I thought were the two midfield players in front of them, that they weren't dropping back right onto the toes of the defenders. What they were doing was letting the defenders do their job.
Yeah.
Giving them space to
Giving
defend.
them space to do it, to mark in their own way, in their own way, and not be pressured by mispositioning of the midfield. And
In fairness, Malcolm, as well, what was interesting was Clark, who's never been anywhere near the team and hasn't played since about the beginning of the year. And when he's called on, he very rarely lets Newcastle United down.
Ever, does he?
He did well
what
again.
A great
He did
pro.
well again.
He is a fantastic
never lets him down.
professional, and he just comes in, does a great job, and he was acting the captain as well, in the way that he was getting others involved and motivated.
And he knows he's never going to be first choice.
Yes.
I mean, Lejeune, when
Yeah.
he comes back, is going to be first choice.
I've got the
But
utmost respect
Oh, me
for
as
him.
well.
He was never
Really.
bought as a first choice. He was bought as backup by Rafa
Yes,
in case there was
yes,
an injury
yes.
to a centre half.
Correct,
And then
because you
ended up-
need backup,
Played a
don't you?
massive part in the promotion season, of course, as well.
And by the way, you look at his goals record. He scores goals off set pieces for us.
Oh, he
Yes,
has
he
done.
does.
He scores goals.
Yes, he does.
So-
Sorry, I
Go on,
just
go on.
wanted to go back to one thing, and that was how young Matty took his goal.
Yeah.
How many times do you see, not just at St James's Park, but right the way across the Premiership, midfield players in that identical situation, and forwards as well, that Matty found himself in, and they sky the ball.
Yeah. He got over it and pinged it.
Everything so right. And
But he does, doesn't he, Malcolm? Not just on that one. I mean, when you think he hit the bar with a long-range effort in the first half, he scored, if I remember, Steve, pre-season at St James's Park.
Yeah, he did against St Etienne.
Yes, with a belt into he's got that in his armour.
Yes.
Sometimes you see somebody have a shot, say Willems, who scored at Liverpool. How often is he going to do that? I don't know. Hopefully quite regularly.
You'd like it to be regular.
You don't think. But you know, with Matty, this could be regular.
Right, but the point I'm making, and this is for any youngsters who are watching, well, what is it that he was doing so right? And quite simply, he didn't want to see himself score. He kept his head down over the ball, struck the ball, and still was looking down. And he probably didn't see the goal until the ball was already nestled in the net. And that's the art. You keep your head right down. And
if you look too far up, that's where it's going to go, isn't it?
Yeah.
A lot of comparisons between him and Paul Scholes.
As soon as your head comes up, the ball will go
Being
up.
ginger helps,
helps,
helps to make the comparison.
Very similar, small, stocky.
In fairness, let's not get too carried away. Scholes is one of the greatest midfielders England's ever had. Matty might become that. But let's not make him Paul
Scholes. He's got a nasty streak in him.
Yeah.
But let's not make him Paul Scholes in 90 minutes because you know.
But he's got the nasty streak of Paul Scholes.
Yeah, 100%.
That's good.
Yeah. That really is good.
Matt Ritchie had an operation this week, just a minor operation, which obviously means it's going to be.
He recovers well and quickly from it.
A light setback, I suppose. But I mean, you know, can you see Ritchie coming straight back into the team when he does get fit? Yes.
I think his work rate is second to none in the team. Willems is really the position where he plays these days. Now he's good going forward. He scored the goal at Liverpool. He pulled back for Matty, etc. Defensively, it's ironic that we should be sort of lauding Ritchie a bit defensively because he was an out-and-out winger that couldn't defend for Toffee when Rafa first asked him to play a wing back. People were running off his shoulder and he's turning around saying, "Where are they?"
He really did look lost, didn't he?
But he's got stuck, to his credit. He got stuck in. He didn't say, "I'm not playing there, I'm a winger, I should be up." He got stuck in and he made a very, very good job of it. And I think his heart's huge, he cares, and he does that much for Newcastle. I would think he will be a very important part of Newcastle as soon as he's fit again. Yeah, I do.
100%. No, I agree, The interesting thing that's gone on off the pitch, I think this week, was Jeremy Corbyn. Obviously, politics and football don't always go hand in hand, but when you're trying to score points and win votes at an election, it does. Corbyn,
all of a sudden, it came.
What better way to get your votes back
if
up
in
Newcastle if you're having a pop at Mike Ashley? And of course, you know that's what we had this week. Jeremy Corbyn comes out and has a pop at Mike Ashley. Mike Ashley responds. And the interesting thing I got from that wasn't anything to do with the politics. I mean, he obviously slated Mike Ashley, but he basically turned around Ashley and said that there would be investment in the transfer window in January. That was the message that came back out from a press statement from St James's. There was going to be investment. Now I know the proof's in the pudding.
Yes, it always is in the pudding.
Do you think Bruce is going to get back? Do you think there's going to be more money spent?
If we could just leave that just for the moment. Because I want to take Corbyn to task because he just showed that he knows nothing whatsoever about A, football and B, business because he hasn't understood what Mike Ashley has actually done for the club in as much that he's put it on a firm financial footing. And because he actually said that Newcastle were in a dire situation with regards to their finances. That's not the case. Whether there's enough investment going on, that's always to be debated. But Corbyn didn't get onto that part. He just didn't understand football nor nor business. And what Mike Ashley has done, and I know that there's a lot of dislike, even running to hatred for Mike Ashley, but he has secured Newcastle United financially, if not football-wise.
For his own benefit, it has to be said, I think. I would agree with that. I think you look at it and think, well, he's come in, he saved the club from going into, a financial abyss, really, under the previous
owners. Don't
let me be grateful that we're not Portsmouth or Coventry or whatever, because I'm sorry, I don't look upon my Newcastle United as possibly going down that road, while I know that's possible to happen. I'd rather look the other way and say we shouldn't be grateful that we're not Portsmouth. We should be very aggrieved that we don't any longer compete with Bournemouth and Watford and Burnley in the Premier League.
Yes, absolutely.
I would rather turn my attention to the fact that we're not doing that than, I'll be eternally grateful because I'm not Portsmouth. Because I believe that Newcastle United ought to be a lot bigger. Yes, the belt and braces with, as Malcolm said, financially, but you're not going to get fans give a round of applause because they see the balance sheet. The balance sheet's got to be right because you haven't got a club otherwise. But the lack of investment to make Newcastle better than it is, we are left with the impression every season that as far as Mike Ashley's concerned, as long as we are in the Premier League, we have achieved the height of our ambition. Our ambition hasn't been to win the FA Cup or the League Cup or get into Europe. Our ambition is to make certain all the money that comes through the Premier League remains with us. And that's why when he has been a chancer at all in the transfer market, it's been the 2 seasons we've been in the Championship, and he's needed to come back very, very quickly.
Yes, it has. But also, John, this last summer, he spent a huge amount of money on players who really aren't impressing.
Oh, I was going to say, yes, he will probably look and say that he spent 61 million on the 2 Joe Linton and Almiron. They can't get a goal between them. They've got 1 goal.
17 maximum? 17, something like that?
Yeah. So if you take the front 3,
but he's the one that's
likely
to succeed out of the 3 of them, the way they're going at the moment.
Massive money.
But if it hadn't have been for young Matty Longstaff striking the goal that he did, we probably wouldn't have scored because not one of the 3 forwards actually had a shot. That's frightening. They're playing at home. It doesn't matter who you're playing against. You're playing at home.
For me, the paper was over the cracks. It was great to leave St James's Park last week and see Newcastle United winning a game, beating Man United, who we had a bit of rivalry with in the entertainers' years. But it didn't paper over the cracks. Man United were poor. Newcastle United aren't very good, and it's a long way to go. And like it said, it's the emotional roller coaster you ride with Newcastle. Leicester away, defeated 5-0. We're all going down.
1 week later.
A week later, we'll win 1-0. Everyone's going, Europe, and just the passports out.
It's the highs and the lows.
We'll go to Chelsea.
We'll go to Chelsea
we'll
next.
get another cuffing.
Right.
We'll go to Chelsea next, and that is because if you remember, after we beat Spurs, we went out of the League Cup in midweek at home when we played Leicester. We only drew with Watford. Had lost every single game in the season in the league, and we played them at home on the Saturday and only got a draw with them. And then we went on to the rest of the league.
And they had 80% of the play.
Well, everybody has 80% to play against Newcastle.
It's embarrassing.
It is embarrassing.
So it isn't all sunshine and light as yet. It would be lovely to think it is, because I haven't got a death wish. I don't want Steve Bruce to fail just because he's Steve Bruce.
No.
Is not the
Nobody
manager
does.
that some Newcastle fans wanted. Of course we don't, because we want our club to survive. And I don't want to get at Ashley through
Steve Bruce.
Or through the failure of Newcastle United. I want Ashley out, but not at the expense of my club or where we go with the club. And it's a whole new ball game, and we wouldn't have long enough in this programme to say whether Ashley fully intends to sell unless he gets an offer that he can't refuse, whether he's going to sell at any stage or whether we're stuck with him come what may.
Well, I'm glad to say there's been no takeover talk since last week's show.
Thank goodness for that.
But we have got an international break, and I know you were both out at the Wallsend Boys dinner last night, so you probably didn't see the feast of football that was on display.
No, I was grateful in the end.
But,
yes.
I mean, let's just touch on it briefly. Obviously, England, first time they've lost a qualifier for 10 years, which you know is an interesting stat. But you know, something doesn't look right at the international team. I mean, since that World Cup run, which saw us, you know, bow out at the semi stage, things haven't looked quite right, have they?
Do you think that that in these competitive matches, that the manager is experimenting a little bit too much? You know, friendlies are maybe more for experimentation.
Yeah.
You know, but he's throwing a lot of youngsters and inexperienced players in.
The funny thing is, before we get beaten, the national press are trumpeting about this is the bravest England manager of all time. He'll put kids in and he'll throw people out, and there's only one guy survived from his first team, etc., etc. Then, if it goes wrong, of course, he's a stupid man who's experimenting too much. But there seems to be a little bit of a malaise in the top things at the moment. Manchester United, you look and you think they're not playing with the manager. Spurs, you look and say, what's going on there? You know, there's something.
There's something serious.
And you think of dear old Harry Kane. I mean, he's getting caned in his club and he's getting caned with England.
Good for Alan Shearer's record.
Yes, the big man's chuffed.
Yeah, but it is strange. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of international football. I think for me, it's never really been the same since 1990 with Gaza and the Tears. But you know, there's something, maybe that's just me getting older. But it's not, it's not a game I would sit and watch. And I do watch them when the big tournaments are on, but the qualifiers fail to watch them. There's not the same kind of buzz around international football.
But that was the shock last night, though, wasn't it? Because qualifiers, we just win them all.
Yeah.
And then we're going to the big tournament and get knocked out.
Get beaten.
Yeah. But I mean, that's so when they lose a qualifier last night, everybody go, ooh.
Big news.
Right. There's the shock.
And that Central European belt that goes north to south from the Baltic down to the Mediterranean, Poland, Czechoslovakia and Yugoslavia, they turn out some fantastic sides.
Yugoslavia? You're living in the past
yes,
there,
Malcolm. Yes, I know.
Yeah, Croatia.
But you now have all the Yugoslav states.
Absolutely.
You know,
absolutely.
And they're turning out some terrific football sides.
Always have, haven't they?
Always have, and that is where England historically find a problem. And to take the risks that Southgate took last night,
once you get the waistcoat back on, I think.
Yeah.
That's the answer. Never thought of that. I can rest assured. I'll send them a line. One waistcoat back. It's a bit like your shirts. We're never certain what's happening with your shirt.
So next game, of course, as we've already mentioned, is Chelsea away, and not usually a happy hunting ground, lads, is it? Really?
It's not. And it's intriguing, isn't it? Because we're all on about the Longstaffs, and what they've done for Newcastle last game, and they're the centre, and we've had all the, the photographs of them as kids, and wonderful story, a lovely story. Interesting that we now go to Chelsea, where they are exactly the same. Their side these days is built on youth, whether it's Tammy Abrahams, whether it's the Hudson-Odoi and Mount. The three kids. Now, almost both clubs, Malcolm, have been forced into this situation. Yes. The two Longstaffs have just emerged because of lack of availability. Sean last season, he wasn't selected ahead of players. We ran out the midfield players. He was put in, was a sensation, and stayed in. Yeah. Matty, if Hayden hadn't have been red carded, we wouldn't have seen Matty. Yeah. So it's more or less been forced on us. It happened by accident. Equally, their great kids have happened by accident because the transfer embargo that's on them has meant that Lampard,
and it's got one more window to go, hasn't it?
Yes. But all of a sudden, Lampard's getting heralded as this great visionary that loves kids. He didn't have a lot of choice. Though, in fairness to him, he's put them in, stuck by him. Tammy Abrahams, he could have stuck with Giroud, who just was a World Cup winner with France. He could have played him centre forward. And he has. Can you remember under, and you'll remember, Steve, that under Rafa, we tried to get Tammy Abrahams on loan. Can you remember?
Yeah, we tried to sign him full stop. He wanted him 100%, and unfortunately didn't come off for whatever reason.
Good young player.
Yes,
100%.
yes. And I think that that Chelsea have been very shrewd in using that disaster, if you like, of being out of the transfer windows, out of the market, to bring those kids in and
Mind had so many kids. If they hadn't had a city that they'd had out on loan, they were never going to see the first team.
That's right.
Never going to see the first team.
They've used this opportunity I think, to really enrich themselves for the coming 2 or 3 seasons. And well done to them. It'll be interesting to see Chelsea kids against Newcastle kids. That I really am looking forward to seeing how the 2 young midfields.
Oh, somehow
they've got one of the best youth setups, Chelsea.
I think. Without a shadow.
Yes,
and that's going to be, it's a tough ask really to go down there and expect to get.
In a way, it's one of the worst games we could have out of, say, going to Liverpool, which we've already done, to follow up on after Man U.
Sure, but. Yes, but I suppose Newcastle are actually doing better against the higher sides this season than they are against the lower sides.
Well, and I know the point you're making, but like Norwich when we lost, but I would call Leicester a higher side now, and they took us apart at 5-0, wouldn't they? I think they are one of the big. They're one of the big sides now.
They're still the best side I've seen this season.
Yeah, you were saying now.
Yeah.
Prediction for next week, John?
Oh, God, because it's always a heart and a head situation. I think we may lose 2-0, but because it's not a happy hunting ground, but I would like to think we'd get a 1-1.
Yeah, Mal, same for you?
Similar. I would just hope that in the Newcastle camp that the forwards' backsides are being kicked while everybody else is being congratulated, defence and midfield, for the wonderful efforts that they put in, that Steve Bruce is kicking the backsides of the forwards, because they're not scoring simply because they ain't shooting.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And if these guys start to shoot, then the Newcastle side will take on a whole different meaning. It really will. And I want to see those forwards being selfish and looking to strike at goal.
Can I just interrupt there as well?
Sorry, I didn't answer you.
Yeah,
2 each.
2-2.
That's
right,
brilliant.
okay.
Just one passing thought on that, talking about the forward shooting and everything, and Almiron is a huge example of the need for his first goal. Can I just put in one thing before I ask Steve? Can Almiron also stop diving, please? Because midweek, I mean, it really
is embarrassing.
It really is. So please, can you start scoring and stop diving?
Yeah.
100%.
I always remember.
Go on.
Sorry.
No.
I always remember playing at Old Trafford, and there was a centre half called Jim Holton.
I remember him. Eyes are blue, 6'2", eyes are blue.
Big Scottish centre half, and the ball had been played up by Frank Clark, and it had bounced some yards in front of me and was just coming up nicely onto my chest, and I'm sort of looking to envelop it. And just as it's about to arrive, Jim Holton has come from behind and just gone poof in the back of my head, and I've just collapsed. and I'm sort of seeing stars going. The referee has sent Jim Holton off, and Tommy Docherty, because there's he had to jump up onto the side of the pitch because it's elevated from the track, and he's jumped up and he's leaning over me, and I'm seeing stars, and all I could hear was, "You cheat, you're a cheat."
This was Tommy Docherty.
Tommy Docherty to me, and I've got this great big egg coming up from the back of me head.
So you were a diver as well, were you?
Prediction from me, I've got to be perfectly honest. I can't see Newcastle getting a goal next week. I'd love to think they would, but I can only see a defeat. I think 2-0's probably about right, John. I think you're right. I'm going to go for a 2-0 defeat. So let's see what happens. We will be back after the Chelsea game with NUFC Matters. If you have missed any episodes, then please go onto the YouTube channel, click subscribe, and you won't miss another episode. But as always, it's been a pleasure to be joined by John and by Malcolm. We're going to play out on YouTube and on Twitter with Little Britain by the Long Sands.
If you're right, you're wrong, only free. If you sing their songs, and I know they wait till we're ahead, and they regulate if I laugh at jokes around work, that my job's on hold, and they fight so hard to be free. But if you smoke your bar, so I'm out here standing in the, I'm out here standing in the, I'm out here smoking in the rain. Well, you're young and bright, but you need a gun to fight. They won't take the blame. It's all sky and computer games, and I see divide on our streets, and it's in our eyes, and I pay the fee. I feel alone in my own country as I'm out here standing in the, I'm out here standing in the, I'm out here smoking in the rain. So let's raise the roof and do it for all our children, unless we want them all to be their angels. Let's raise the roof on our next generation. I'm sick of standing in the, I'm sick of standing in the, I'm fucking smoking in the rain. So we pay their tolls I can't save, and my funds controlled, and they make us see it's for our good and our own safety, and I laugh at that, and I ask where your balls are at. There's a big debate. Is it true the weather nanny stayed as I'm out here standing in the, I'm out here standing in the, I'm out here smoking in the